So hi everyone, my name is Priyakshi and today I'm speaking to Mr. Bhuwan Purohit, who is the Executive Director at Rubamin Private Limited. So we previously interviewed Bhuwan over a year ago. Today we are reconnecting to see the progress they've made over the last year. And also we'll go into a little bit of detail at the policy level, what has been happening of late and what needs to be done. So can we start with the current status? What does your black mass refining facility look like at the moment? What's the current scale?
The facility for black mass refining has started production, which means we have already fed the first batches of black mass to the facility. And we hope that we will be in full swing operation in about a month's time, because that is the time it usually takes for a hydromet facility to stabilize and to ensure that the quality output is submitted.
If you can list the end products that will come out of your black mass refining facility.
So what we will do is that, you have the graphite, which goes out first, which gets converted into a intermediate product, because unfortunately, graphite being a mix of multiple graphites from several batteries, it's very difficult to refine it to the level of a circular product right now, given the today's technology and the need of the battery companies. On the cobalt metal, we will convert it into cobalt sulfate to begin with. And some companies from battery side have asked us to convert it into other products like cobalt chloride or cobalt oxide. And that is also on the card, and in fact, it will get done. Then we have manganese sulfate, which is the most used product. We have nickel sulfate, and we have lithium carbonate, lithium hydroxide. Our first batch will make lithium carbonate, but we have been asked to make lithium hydroxide also. We will make a portfolio of products to serve the need of the entire industries and including the battery industry. I hope that all of it goes back to the batteries, because that's going to be the big demand, which will make us more and more circular.
In terms of the current operations, can you help us understand how are you going about setting up the supply chain for your operations? Are you already buying black mass from Indian producers? And in terms of end products also, are there already customers qualified who you are supplying the end products to?
So let me first talk about the buying. Yes, we are buying from the Indian shredding units. We also have now an import license to import material from outside of India, just in case that we are not able to procure from domestic suppliers because of their being highly non-compliant in the way they define their product. Now, black mass is a hazardous material, but most of the shredding units are selling it as a product and using HS code and nomenclatures which do not reconcile with the government's, their will or their declaration. And to that extent, we face those difficulties. But eventually, I think things will be all right, and we'll be able to procure all the black mass from the domestic markets. And import will just be a fallback rather than a necessity. And in terms of approvals, I think we have been in business for more than 40 years, supplying chemicals to every continent in the world and to the Indian markets. There are a lot of applications where these chemicals find their usage, and we are approved in several applications where this material will immediately start to go. In the battery space, we have given out samples for the last 1 year to various battery companies or battery precursor companies who have found the samples of very high quality. They will of course approve the material which comes out of the final commercial facility. And it's going to take some time, but I think that's already in progress. We will be sending sample from the plant very shortly to all of them. And I think it will be not very long, considering the kind of facility, the kind of quality, and that Rubamin can provide to these companies.
Right. So when we discussed last time, you talked about a scale of 5,000 TP of black mass refining. How much time should it take to achieve that kind of scale?
Immediate. I think we will touch over 3,000 this year and over 5,000 starting next year. And when I say 5,000, you see that becomes the nameplate capacity which you have in mind when you construct a hydrometallurgy operation. But it always depends on the speed of throughput, the kind of material, and it has been based upon NMC, which has all the metals. LFP, on the other hand, has less amount of metals and it frees up a lot of capacity. So I think it will depend on the mix. The capacity can easily go up to 7,500. And push comes to shove, we will be able to do even more. But that we will know as the time goes by.
Right. And like you talked about chemistries, is there a case for profitably recycling the LFP chemistry batteries at the moment?
I don't know what does it mean by profitably recycling LFP, because recycling is a requirement of the statute and the requirement of the human race. So profits really don't matter there. It depends on who pays for it. We already have contracts for LFP supply where the supplier is paying us for getting the LFP recycled. And what does that mean? That the gap, if there is any, needs to be funded by somebody, either the government or the customer or the producer of the material, who is the reason why this recycling is required, because they are making profits out of it. So at the end of the day, a recycler's job is to ensure that he recycles responsibly and gets the material back into usage. Whether it is economically viable or not is to be determined by the people who created the waste, and they will have to pay up for it. So I don't think, if it is not economic viable, the recycler will not do it. I mean, as simple as that.
Right. So right now that onus falls on the producer. Right.
See, it's very difficult for producers to digest that they have to pay for the batteries that they sold and made profits from. It's very difficult for them to give anything for free. In India, we don't give anything for free. Europeans do, you know, they pay you to recycle. Americans do. We get paid to recycle spent catalyst. The question is, how hazardous is the material? How required is the ingredients? And whether it needs to be paid for, whether it can be dumped into hazardous waste sites. And that's a no from all across the globe, including India. So I'm sure that it will get recycled. I'm sure somebody will pay up for it. The question is, we can recycle? Yes, of course. We've created capacities for that. We can extract at high yields. And I think, in fact, that is going to be one of the strong points of hydrometallurgy recycling, that we will be able to put back the lithium into the play and recover the copper and aluminum from the batteries. That should pay to the guys who created the cell or those who use the cells. And the lithium should pay for the process, and any profits which need to come out will come out from the pockets of the producers, probably, or the government maybe.
Recently, you wrote about the fake EPR credits and how there is a need for the CPCB to conduct audits. So can you describe what the situation is?
Well, it's quite simple, Priyakshi. You see, black mass is a hazardous waste. Okay. It cannot be sold as a product. As simple. Now, the government of India has not declared that it requires permission or is it hazardous. It was always hazardous. As per the Hazardous Waste Management Act schedule, it fell under the hazardous waste ever since it came into existence. So much so that there is a HS code 8549, a chapter under which waste from primary batteries or electronic and electrical waste is classified. And the government of India, Customs and DGFT have made it restricted. It requires a license to import or export. Now, what people are doing is exporting that as a product and claiming the lithium, cobalt, and nickel present inside the black mass as if they have created a product and recycled the battery. And those EPR credits have been sold to the electronic companies or the mobile companies or to the other producers, whereas they never had the right to get those EPR credits. And it's rampant. I think somebody, and particularly Customs, DGFT, have to take notice of this and talk to CPCB and MOEF to put an end to it ASAP, because at the end of the day, the producers are paying for EPR credits and in effect paying for exporting critical metals out of India.
Understood. So one reason that the black mass is going out of the country is of course, the economically, it should be very lucrative for them to do this. So when you are buying black mass from shredding units, so is the price the same as they get in the international market?
I won't exist otherwise. There is no need for a recycler if he cannot pay the best price in the world. Why do you think anybody in the world can pay a better price than India? I mean, that's a very simple question one should ask. Getting a black mass from India to anywhere in the world requires you to do paperwork, requires you to do the freight up to the port. It needs clearance expenses, freight expenses. And India, which has lower cost of labor, lower investment as compared to most of the countries internationally, and better yields. We have been buying hazardous waste from across the globe under licenses, creating value-added chemicals, circular chemicals in India, and exporting them across the globe. If that is possible, why is it not possible for batteries? There is no reason. And the fact that we have purchased from the Indian market, that should tell you that we can pay the price which anybody else can pay in the world. In fact, my sense would be we can pay a better price as compared to anybody else.
Okay, combining all the scale we have with respect to hydrometallurgy in India at the moment, do we have enough to absorb the capacities that is coming out of these black mass shredding units?
Well, before me, you interviewed a lot of companies which have claimed 10,000, 20,000, 100,000. I don't know how much capacity is in India. And there are early players here in India who have voiced the same opinion. If you read the post on LinkedIn, you've also read the post from others like Atero or Loham or for Badex or so many other companies. You put those capacities together, they are far exceeding the generation of black mass in the country. And therefore, forget them. Let me just ask you, what do you think would be the black mass export from India? The government has no figures. I'll tell you, the government has no figures because nobody is classifying it as in the head of black mass or as a waste. So it is going under different words, you know. So like for instance, unwrought metal powder. Okay. So if you look unwrought metal, there'll be 10 metals under that category. So you'll never know how much black mass actually went out of the country. My guess is it's under 10,000 tons. And if it is under 10,000 tons, alone Rubamin will be processing it. I mean, I want black mass right now, and it is going to be difficult for us to get black mass from India. That's why we have applied and got the import license. So the reality is, this is the ill-founded belief, a myth which people have created that India doesn't have capacity. Probably India has more capacities which are actually working as compared to probably Europe and US.
Okay.
In fact, I have more European and US companies wanting to offer black mass than Indian companies.
Oh, okay. So we might see some imports if need be, given that how the capacity is building up in India for hydrometallurgy.
We will not need it if the custom, DGFT and MOEF take a stand and stop the material. I think they need to understand the situation and they need to take a severe, straight, immediate action. You will not need to import and spend foreign exchange on import of these items from outside. It will only become a reality that India will become the recycling hub for the world for hydrometallurgy. Because other than Korea and China, if there is one company which has hydrometallurgical competence coming from companies like Hindustan Copper or Hindalco, or from companies like Hindustan Zinc from Vedanta Group, I think we have a lot of hydrometallurgy competence. Our universities are geared for it. Our people are geared for it. We have chemical engineers, much more than they exist anywhere else in the world. And therefore, I truly believe that India can become a recycling hub, provided the government takes note of this issue and curbs these practices immediately.
Understood. So at Rubamin, what is your area of focus right now with respect to setting up and scaling up your operations?
So this particular business is highly statutes sensitive. If you allow incorrect, non-compliant practices to exist in your economy, if you allow unorganized trade to flourish in your economy, no good businessman would want to build capacities inside India. It's a writing on the wall. There are enough and more countries outside which have the material and which are inviting good companies to set up plants there because they want to create employment. They want to deal with the waste in an environmentally friendly manner. The opportunities are a lot. Funds are not a problem today. And therefore, a scale-up in India will happen only if a cleanup in India happens. Right. The statutes have to take notice. They have to be strict. They have to ensure compliance happens. We have a brilliant plan and statutes laid out by the government today in India. I think we are one of the finest in the world. There is no country in the world which has a beautiful framework of hazardous waste management system, CPCBs and state pollution control boards, authorizations, battery waste, electronic waste, plastic waste management rules, a system of centralized portal which connects all recyclers and producers, which is highly transparent, and an EPR system, which is setting up and giving incentives to the recyclers to patch up the initial gap in the economic viability. And at the same time, the government is carrying out national critical mineral mission, incentives under the specs scheme of MEITI, incentives by state governments under their industrial policy and Department of Science and Technology. I think India has played it beautifully and the government has done a phenomenal job. The only thing remaining now is to enforce the regulation, and that will make all the difference. India will get many more capacities. Companies like Rubamin will grow 3 folds from where we are and set up large recycling network. But one area which the government has to still action, which they are working on, I believe, is the bilateral agreements with United States, Europe, and advanced nations for allowing import of black mass and battery waste into the country, because India being a non-OECD country is prevented from getting those material which are currently flowing to Korea, Japan, and other economies unrestricted. And I think government should take that up, because once they have recognized that this is a critical resource and something which can be recycled within India without any environmental impact, I think this is a big opportunity knocking at our doorstep, and we must take advantage of this position.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Purohit. Great speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Priyakshi. Thanks a lot.